Right into champion select and talk about hopping. They're going to hop Tristana right out of the game.
And this is exactly what I thought TSM was going to be doing. They very rarely actually use all of their bans on one person, but they will try to take out the best champion of one of each person. So Zuna's played nothing but Tristana since their success. I don't think he's lost with it. Nasus is actually, even though there was a lot of Jarvan yesterday, Nasus is actually Smithy's favorite jungler, and then the Thresh is just going for Bloodwater. This could be a Sona pick. That was fast, though.
That was super fast. Sona going back and forth. I think Thresh is the only other one in the past few games of both of these teams that it's going to be Bloodwater that played Thresh. So Sona, the big pick there. I like the Nocturne ban as well because that was within the Karthus composition. That's still alive, but they may deter that because of that global presence denial.
And I feel like these guys, I think this is the fastest 6 bans and 3 picks we've probably seen in the entire year.
Yeah.
But a lot of it did go according to pre-planning. I don't think there was too much mystery about what these guys are going to be doing. Because Vulcan actually banned out Renekton, they're trying to take that away from Dyrus, who's his strongest thing. And then they picked what I think is actually Psycho Sid's #2 champion right now in Malphite, even though he's only played it once all year.
We'll have to see what they choose. Odd One did pull out Shogath versus Dignitas. They are putting Karthus on the hover right now. They have, as you said, Dyrus has been banned out quite a bit here. What could he be looking for if Dyrus were to be the last pick to get in?
So Dyrus will probably wait a little bit longer to pick his thing, depending on what the rest of Vulcan ends up picking is, because Reginald is going for that contested Karthus pick right now. They know that Mandatory Cloud plays that multiple times. He was actually already playing that in the victory that Vulcan had over TSM, and picking Wild Turtle's 80 carry is also, he's the wild card of TSM, so to speak. He played 5 different 80 carries during Super Week, and there's not a full rhyme or reason onto what he plays. He oftentimes just picks to win the lane or get the individual matchup, and he doesn't really care about the greater scheme of the game, but it's been working out for them great.
Right, and a smart pick anyways. The jungler and top laner showed, so you're not going to lose anything there. Get the 80 carry right now. Like you said, wild card on Wild Turtle, and he gets what he wants right now.
And let's see what Vulcan still has to do here. So now they have the opportunity to counterpick the mid lane. They could go with something like a Diana because they've done that against Karthus in the past. And we really don't know exactly what they're going to be going for. If that's a Zyra, Mad Cloud hasn't played Zyra, but Bloodwater has also pretty much only played Thresh, Sona, and Lulu this year.
Yeah.
He's played 1 game of Nami, but that was back when he was on GGU. So that would be a difficult support if he decides to pick that. And it would also give the opportunity for a last pick, counter pick from Mandatory Cloud mid.
We do see a hover on Rumble from Dyrus here. We saw a bit of Kha'Zix and Jace come out from him. Obviously, they couldn't catch him on Kha'Zix, but they do lock in the Rumble, and he hasn't really gotten a huge nerf or anything. Just people haven't been using him as much since the ultimate isn't instant damage.
And this is something that Dyrus has played a lot of in the past.
Yeah.
He definitely likes playing Rumble sometimes, and it's a good pick against Malphite, because oftentimes when Malphite lanes, he loves to just stack armor since it synergizes so well with his entire kit. He has an armor percentage steroid. The damage on his E has an armor ratio on it, but Rumble just does magic damage, so he makes the itemization much more difficult for the Malphite player if they go up in a 1v1. And the Cho'Gath is actually something that the Odd One played in their win against Dignitas in their last game of Super Week, so actually the last time we saw TSM in competition. And that is a bold counterpick mid lane by Mandatory Cloud.
I guess it's what you have to do when you're faced with a poke composition.
It seems a little bit like it. They want to be able to initiate with the rest of the team. If Psycho Sid goes in, that will allow Bloodwater to land his roots and his knockup after that. And they're going a little bit AoE themselves. There's so much AoE in the game nowadays, it's almost rare either team has an AoE comp, because they really both do when you look at it that way. But Mandatory Cloud going with a very curious choice here, because in the past he's been the guy who tries to out-farm and then apply pressure that way. He has run some teleport in the past, but going teleport against Reginald's Karthus, that obviously doesn't have teleport because he's got that Requiem, might tell me that Mandatory Cloud is going to try and keep up with Reginald throughout the game, as far as roaming goes.
And how do you feel about these lane swaps? Because you have a Caitlyn Sona. You're going to take some power chords. You're going to take some poke, and you have a Zyra support. Right now, Zuna's running heal. It's 1 second. It's been locked in. His escape is flash and strut speed. Are they going to want to match up against that? Because the damage is going to stick in that Zyra lane. It'll
be very interesting to see if they decide to 2v2, because I feel like TSM thinks they have the edge in the majority of the lanes. I think they're confident in Dyrus' ability to beat Psycho Sid, and they picked the counter lane in Rumble versus Malphite. So if they can get that lane, they want it. Also, when you pick a Caitlyn, even though Caitlyn is a good shover in a 1v2, Caitlyn wins 2v2 matchups. That's one of the reasons she's such a safe generalist pick in competitive play. So Yes, I think that TSM will have to react to 1v2s, but I don't think they're going to initiate them themselves.
Oh, of course, right. It's keeping that blue side, keeping the golems in the bottom. Not really an all-in bottom lane, but they can keep themselves safe, like we said. They're poke anyway, so they're looking to get the advantage out of that. We may see a TSM game where they go fast turrets if they can get the swap in their favor on this. That was something TSM implemented in that week 4. We saw the first Super Week, just 5-minute turrets all over the place down to the inhibitors.
And TSM does a good job of switching up their strategies. I was trying to watch their level 1s in Super Week, and they actually did a different thing almost every game. Sometimes they 5-stack, sometimes they try to get deep wards, and sometimes they just decide to spread out. This looks like one of those games where they spread out a little bit. They actually tended to invade more against teams that were extremely high-seeded, so they wanted to try to get an edge on those guys. But against someone like Vulcan, if they're not invading in this situation, that would kind of tell me that TSM is very comfortable in their ability to win this game standardly, and they don't need any level 1 tomfoolery to get something going.
There we go, a flag toss in the bush. Now, this isn't something we talk about too much. We talk about kind of bringing hard crowd control to a lane, but what kind of, not danger or threat, but kind of troublesome effects does it pose when you do have a Katarina in middle? Is it a lane that Odd One's not going to want to focus because you don't have a result of getting a gank every time, or what are they going to do in that situation?
So Katarina is an incredibly difficult champion for Cho'Gath to gank in particular, just because she can usually just jump out of the rupture to
just
anything in the area, and Reginald will mainly try to follow up with the slow, so I think that lane will mainly be a farm lane unless Mandatory Cloud decides to get really aggressive. But the lanes that Odd One would want to gank would be more along the lines of Psycho Sid before level 6 or Zuna and Bloodwater, since there's no real move blocks on either one of those guys, and the grasping roots from Zyra actually isn't that amazing at stopping a Cho'Gath gank in particular.
All right, we'll see. Getting that regular help around the jungle. Psycho Sid heading down to the bottom lane, get some help with the Wolves.
And yesterday, in all of Vulcan's games, they did double buffs at level 1, so they actually had Xmithy start over at this red, but then they were giving Mandatory Cloud the blue buff. That's actually why X Special went up there just now, because they were checking to see if they were going to do that move again. But without having a blue buff reliant champion in mid lane, Vulcan decides it's not that important, and they're just going to allow Xmithy to farm it up.
Well, they are the wiser. They had that ward, so they know they have the ward placed back near the tri-bush. Bloodwater coming in to clear a lot of pink wards going down early here to open up vision.
And that's a smart pink ward by Vulcan. It's going to be going back a little bit, because right at the start when Darius warded that bush, he did it while the Jarvan standard was still in it, and they pinged that ward immediately. So it was just a matter of time that Bloodwater would go up there with the pink and clear out that ward.
X Special just showing a little bit of harass here. He does see that they're doing it, so that's their timer pretty much on him. Now that they know, they're going to figure out where he can go. Knowing the ward is there, looks like he's going to hide around it and try to just set up something early and pressure.
And even though TSM didn't stop him from getting that blue buff, that knowledge that X Special gained, since there was no threat to Wild Turtle since he was in a 1v2, is a good move. TSM does do a very good job of at least keeping tabs on where everyone is on the map, as they've forever improved their communication this season.
So we should see the Odd One up top sometime soon as they're getting pushed in here, and looks pretty much going to mirror these lanes. Mandatory Cloud did go a bit aggressive just in the early part of that, chugging down some of his potions, but he went all potions for himself, so he's not too bad off.
It's one of those common Katarina starts, and now even though it's a tough gank for the Odd One to lane for the Odd One to gank, he's going for Man Cloud. There's no minions for Man Cloud to jump to, but it looks like he's just going to use the side of the lane to get out of there.
Yeah, he definitely planned very accordingly for the wave. It looks like they are just forced to back out. So showing some pressure mid. He may come back for a second time around. Right now he just heads to the bottom side of the jungle. Doesn't need to really help out Wild Turtle and Special too much right now. Dyrus is getting pushed at his turret, however.
Rumble is an okay 1v2, just like Malphite is an okay 1v2 lane. Both of these guys decided to go with their 2 people in the lane that had access to the double golems. This could be one of those TSM kill both outer turrets, rush the games, but because there hasn't been the early tower dives, it's not exactly the TSM we saw way early in the season. This is a much more reserved TSM, just hoping to farm out and maybe just beat Vulcan by superior laning mechanics.
Quite a bit of time spent down here again. Xmithy returns to lane. They say don't go away if the minions are just going down. Soak up the experience here with me. More pressure to come out, and looks like they will back off once more. The wave will reset on this one. Xmithy may get some time to go back here.
And both of these junglers haven't really been able to apply much pressure. It's interesting that Xmithy decided to go down and almost babysit Psycho Sid down here, trying to keep Wild Turtle off of it, whereas the Odd One has just been happily farming away. It actually looks like Vulcan's trying to get some time for this turret to recover, because Psycho Sid might want to go back and shop a little bit. the turrets are basically even across the top and bottom, and the odd one is instead putting more pressure, it seems, on Mandatory Cloud, because we know the focus of this game is most likely going to be shutting down ManCloud.
And he is going right after it once again, waiting for that wave to not be there. Looks like he dodges the rupture. The wall goes down. It's only going to be the shout. A few Skittles onto the ground. He takes a good amount of damage, but that's going to be the pressure they want really to start taking over this lane.
Reggie knows that he needs to be able to get going, and picking Karthus into Katarina is quite difficult.
Oh, finally, Xmithy. It looks like a little bit of damage pays off. Doesn't look like they'll be able to get the full kill as they're kited backwards, and that's just that poke team being able to kite constantly.
And now, as a result of all the ganks that the Odd One has put mid, whereas Xmithy has been helping down bottom, that turret's very close to falling, and that's why the Odd One is all the way back up as Turtle gets aggressive bottom.
They go super aggressive just after getting damage done to them by Xmithy. Oh. They take him out. Quick 1-2. Peacemaker into auto attack from the headshot special there to help with the power cord, and Xmithy just gets himself dropped out.
That was not wise. He also got turned around a little bit more by Wild Turtle than he thought he would. That Piltover Peacemaker hit him for the full damage. It didn't go through any minions before it got him. And then X Special actually used the auto attack reset right after Power Cord to get in a spike of damage just to finish off Xmithy and really catch him off guard. So that's the confidence of TSM thinking their lanes are straight up better, because that was nothing creative they did to create that first blood, but it gives them the 800 gold lead.
And Odd One in the top lane, probably feeling good about that his lane was able to pick that up in the bottom. So just about 6 minutes in here, that is a gold lead coming in for Team Solo Mid at about 7,000 gold right now, or 700 gold, I should say. And it looks like that's really going to be only going to the BF sword of Wild Turtle.
And this is going to make it very difficult on Psycho Sid in that lane, because he hasn't had much time to shop. He's going right now. He's going to need to get some kind of insane sustain in that lane, because the poke coming from the BF sword Caitlyn, especially with that mana potion that Wild Turtles picked up, is going to be too much for Psycho Sid to handle, in my opinion.
Odd One looking to come in and more harassment here with Dyrus. Dyrus has his ultimate. Doesn't look like they're going to have enough room to use it just yet, so they're going to back off from this engagement. Reginald now level 6. That Requiem can start posing a threat globally.
Do have to say that Mandatory Cloud has done a pretty good job of farming in this lane as well. Now is the time for Mandatory Cloud to start making some plays. He's been ganked a couple times by the Odd One, which has kind of allowed Reginald to farm up as well, but he's got to roam around. He's got to make something happen, because the other lanes are pretty much losing. The kill for Wild Turtle in the bottom in the 1v2, and the fact that Psycho Sid's turret is very close to going down.
And with a poke composition, you don't have to quickly hit the turrets. It can still scale up to the late game, and you can kind of use that advantage whenever.
TSM is very comfortable with whenever they want to use their advantages in this situation, even though they are a very aggressive team. So I feel like as soon as Reginald sees the opportunity, he will be trying to flash into teams and make things happen. TSM's not the team to wait around.
We got a teleport coming in here. Katarina, ManCloud goes under the water. Odd One did not see it. They're going to flash it onto Dyrus. Odd One's right there to get the shout out. It could be the counter they need for ManCloud, but he goes, he doesn't even get the shout in the right direction. A great job there. He gets the bite down. It's going to be soon. It gets hit. The barrier won't be enough, so the summoner goes as well.
That is 3 kills that TSM has picked up there. So Reginald just sitting pretty in his lane, pops the Requiem and goes, and X Special getting hit as well.
Oh my gosh, so much damage, over and over aggression in each lane from TSM, as we just talked about. Are they pushing advantages?
Okay, so yes, they're trying to push the advantages, but that was a lot of crazy action that kind of happened at the same time. Vulcan went a little too hard. They didn't realize the Odd One was kind of waiting in the wings there, and the feast came down at just the right time for Mandatory Cloud. He wasn't the one who wanted to get caught in the turret while he was channeling his Death Lotus, and that really backfired a little bit. So there was a 3-for-1 on top, but Vulcan evened it out a little bit because Psycho Sid popped a good ultimate bottom.
Wow, dodging them Skittles out. He does not want to taste the rainbow. Saving that blue buff, that would have been great for Reginald. And I'm starting to think about it now. The Cho'Gath, or Katarina into Cho'Gath pick is kind of scaring me.
It is a very scary pick. I mean, a lot of times you pick the Cho'Gath just to stop the Katarina. That's one of the reasons I think, no, never mind, Katarina was the last pick, but he picked it straight into it. And this is a moment for TSM to maybe go for the Dragon, because with Reginald's harass on Xmithy at the blue buff, they know that Xmithy is nowhere near, and they know that he used the smite, so even if he got there, he wouldn't have the smite up.
It looks like they're trying to pressure this top lane hard. They're going to try to counter with the turret from Zuna and Bloodwater. There's one, and the tit for tat goes to Dragon just around 9.5 minutes into the game. Odd One gets that for himself. Feast and Smite to give himself a stack.
And that's still a really good trade, if you want to call it that, for TSM, because both of those turrets that each team has taken were long in the process of being taken down. It was just the last few hits of the turret that were probably going to happen regardless of TSM going for that Dragon. So that is mostly just a free Dragon, even if it appeared like a trade.
So we got 3,000 gold, just about in the favor of Team Solo mid right now. Still probably seeing that mostly in the hands of Wild Turtle. He has 3,700 to himself, but he actually is matched with Reginald in middle. Reginald just has 2,100 gold in his pocket right now.
And all that roam that Mandatory Cloud pulled off with the teleport up top when Reginald just sat pretty in mid lane has allowed Reginald to outfarm him by quite a good pace here. And across Reginald and Wild Turtle, both those guys are just gold-generating machines. Since Wild Turtle joined TSM 14 games ago, he's had over 400 gold per minute, which it's hard to put those in context, but it is #1 in both LCSs by quite a large margin because he has just been on an absolute tear.
So, Jack, how do you mitigate, or how do you take into consideration, right? Reginald he's only Requiem'd a few times, and he didn't have full items. Every lane hasn't seen him or his items. How do you consider the power he's bringing into each fight?
It just puts an extra threat on every single lane, and it changes the nature of those matchups as TSM tries to push up, and maybe Vulcan wanted to collapse, but it looks like they thought better of it.
They were squeezing in on the sides there. TSM kind of feeling that sixth sense. Also a few wards allowing them to position correctly there. 11 minutes at 4-2. 1-1 in turrets is now eyes onto the mid turrets quickly here. Even the ADs and supports are in mid.
Looks like TSM wants to accelerate this game a little bit, but mainly they know that that's Mandatory Cloud's lane, and they don't want to let him get going whatsoever. The big danger, if there is one for TSM in this game, would be that Mandatory Cloud gets going and can start shunpoing around like crazy in team fights, so they're doing everything in their power to keep him down.
Where is the odd one? Odd one just using Feast Smite again. He may be at full stacks. These guys are really getting close to that fight phase. He's actually only at 2 stacks on Cho'Gath. So they're probably looking to build that up, take things slow right now, figure out where everything is. They got a lot of wards to work with as well.
And we got to keep in mind that the odd one did use that one Feast trying to go for the kill Mandatory Cloud up top, which helped him win the fight but didn't contribute to his overall Feast stat growth. And it's a very early Spirit of the Ancient Golem he's actually picked up on Cho'Gath there. We'll see if that ends up paying off for him, because that's an individual item, which is actually somewhat rare to see from the odd one. You normally see him just straight up rush either the Aegis of the Legion or the Locket of the Iron Solari. But because he's got that early lead in this game, he feels confident going for that Ancient Golem Soul.
And to take the odd one past just him himself in his play, and Cho'Gath here as they pressure the mid turret and possibly go for a dive. We'll wait to see if they do. Like Smithy putting himself up front. They don't get the roots, but you see a Cho'Gath in top lane kind of allow the stacks to build health up. It can be considered the same for jungle, or do you want to keep your team, or give your team that more tank?
Well, the odd one is going to try to be the big tank for his team right here. He's going to be going in with Reginald. The luxury that the odd one always has as a jungler is that Reginald is so aggressive that he doesn't actually have, odd one doesn't actually have to be the front liner in all these situations, but maybe he will be in this one because he's been able to get that golem so early. We've seen a lot of split push Reginald, which is actually not something we see every day, and it's working out for TSM so far.
Let's see what they decide to do. Going over, looks like Vulcan tries to take tabs on the blue buff. I don't think they're going to get this uncontested.
But this is the thing. TSM has a couple hits on the mid turret, and they were trying to peel off for that one. Dyrus is just trying to create pressure in that bottom lane, trying to recover farm from the extended 1v2 laning experience he had. So, yes, TSM lost the blue, but Reginald already had his Rod of Ages and that Crystalline Flask, so he's actually one of those mid laners who doesn't demand as many blues as most people do. Oftentimes, even late game, when TSM was running with the Jace, Reginald would give the blue buff to Dyrus' Jace because he knew the Shock Blast Acceleration Gate spam was so much better, and he would just conserve his mana and aggress at the right times.
Oh man, this is going to be big damage. Half health already in 2, in 3. There's 4, dodges the 4th one out. Strut knocked, activated. There he goes, locks it down. Zuna knows he's going to have to fight this one out. Reginald looks to be getting himself a blue buff refresh. The summoner spell as well. He's not even buying time for people to come up. The teleport comes in late, and it looks, no, ManCloud is going to flash in. There's going to be some damage. It's going to be a don't chase a Singe situation. The Death Lotus finally picks up the kill, and the blue buff transferred back.
But think of the pressure that Reginald just created there. Not only did he kill Zuna, who is usually the guy who needs to get it to 6 items, he also pulled the teleport off and allowed his team to get a turret of their own. So that was a very great play overall by Reginald, even if he died.
So 2-1 in turrets. The global gold really giving TSM a good advantage here. Smithy goes a little hard here, tries to dive back, actually gets that pass. He flashes as soon as the silence wears off, but they're going in on him the last shot. The ignite is there. The blue buff goes back, so everybody's just giving blue buffs to everyone.
The odd one may have feasted a minion, but it did not matter. He got the last hit on the minion. He gave the kill to Dyrus, which was probably the plan the whole time. Dyrus is the carry on that team. So all planned for the general in that finish.
Just showing brute force, saying, watch this. I'm not going to kill you, but this will look cool while you die. 6-3, 15 minutes in, 22,500 gold to 19,000. So Vulcan keeping themselves within range. They were able to do this against Chronologic Gaming to 2,000 to 3,000 extent. To see if they can keep swaying it back and forth, or I should say sway it in their favor for the first time soon.
Vulcan really needs to win a fight, and with the Dragon coming up in 25 seconds, that'll probably be their opportunity to do so. They have all of their ultimates up, as will TSM when that fight comes, but in Vulcan's victory over TSM, it was that 4v5 fight at Dragon where they actually clean aced TSM with only 4 people, and then took control of the game, and since they're already a little bit over 3,000 gold behind, they're already starting to lose a little bit of turret pressure. This is probably going to be Vulcan's stand. It's very difficult to fight against Reginald's Karthus in these team fights because the last game these guys played, it was actually Mandatory Cloud who controlled Karthus. But this is Vulcan's moment to try to turn something. They want to try to get a pick before the fight, I think.
So close, Reginald. He would have been able to get rooted over that wall. Looks like they're going to allow TSM to position themselves in the pit here. They haven't pulled Dragon. Oh my God, the ward fight happening before the real fight. Pink ward's going down. They've every ward that just got put down got cleared. I think there would be some ecstatic cheering going on if this was the playoffs.
So one thing that Vulcan does have to take into account is that Reginald's flash is down. Normally Reginald zones out like crazy with Karthus because he will flash into a team with the file up, but he's not able to make that play. Bloodwater getting caught out, taking a lot of damage.
That was a good stop by Psycho Sid there. He gets popped up, ace in the hole, not doing too much damage just yet. Bloodthirster not stacked up. Actually, Infinity Edge rather.
And Vulcan is very disengaging in this situation. They're actually just going for the turret instead of the Dragon. So they don't want to fight. I think they actually recognize that TSM is much stronger than them. And if they can opt in for a mid-turret for a Dragon, that's something Vulcan's going to take every day of the week.
1 for 1, like you said, Vulcan trying to get that little advantage back every time TSM pushes. TSM is really kind of just sitting back on one of the wheelhouse strats, like we said before, but Vulcan is staying organized, so they're taking the steps they need to adapt.
They're really trying to stay in it. They know the fear that TSM has right now. I just don't see the moment in the game where Vulcan's really going to jump back into this one. They have to make some type of creative play, whether that's waiting in the right brush. They have to find a moment where TSM is either caught split pushing or just not grouped up, or if Reggie's a little bit low on mana as he is now. But it seems like TSM is in a lot of control, and if I learned anything from watching TSM all throughout Season 2 is they were the best team at closing games.
They have been able to before, and they've shown it a lot here throughout the end of the season in Season 3 here at the LCS. So we'll see if they can do it once this to Vulcan and sweep the series with 2. Vulcan, obviously, a team that says they're based a lot off momentum, so they're riding that wave from yesterday. They just got to find a foothold and take that next step up. 18 minutes in here. This kill score has not changed too much. It's been really focused on the objectives, focused on making advantage by clearing the waves and getting this vision. We see more wards going down now.
And it's a little strange looking at the hex strength that X-Smithy has completed onto Jarvan the 4th. That kind of tells me that they're not thinking about the team fight game at this exact moment. They're probably just trying to go in more X-Smithy trying to solo people, or maybe X-Smithy trying to fight Reginald in like a 2v1 or a 1v2 situation. Because that Aegis of the Legion or the Runic Bulwark is so important against a team that is running with Rumble and Karthus. And honestly, as well as Cho'Gath, who does a fair chunk of magic damage as well.
Yeah, to kind of consider only the self item. A little selfish, if you will.
Selfish X-Smithy.
Selfish X-Smithy. We'll see if he can be helping this game. So 2-2 in turrets, as we said. Vulcan kind of trying to push back every time TSM gets an edge here. It's been usually the Dragon for Team Solo Mid. Vulcan's been able to find turrets as they really can't fight. Like we've said, they're kind of waiting here for more of the late game, which is scary because TSM also likes that spot too.
Especially when you consider the Wild Turtle has that pentakill on Caitlyn that he actually picked up in his very first game. He will build full offense Caitlyn, and unless you can get on him late game, he is going to kill your entire team, especially since Reginald will already have people very low with his very forward-playing Karthus. So TSM just happily farming around, keeping this game going later and later, and the important thing to keep track of is whether this goal lead remains stagnant or whether TSM continues to increase it. And so far, they're increasing.
So it kind of seems like TSM is finding zero-threat positions. How can Vulcan avoid this?
Well, Vulcan's trying to force TSM into some bad decisions, and that's why they're putting 4 people down the mid lane right now. They would much rather pressure off the mid-turret by getting TSM to teleport down from the top. But the way TSM is flanking them in this way, because Rumble and Caitlyn are behind them, looks like TSM wants a fight.
This could be big. Where's the wall? Reginald actually used it to stop them at the turret, so they have no crowd control to continue this fight. That's going to be that cooldown coming back up, but he just misses the edge of Psycho Sid. Probably would have been an ult out. They push mid.
But they're coming right back in the other direction.
Yeah.
We know that Vulcan just got low. They're all trying to recall. It's too early in the game for them all to have home guard boots, so they're actually going to be a little bit delayed getting this. And there's also a siege mini in this wave, so they're going to be able to take that turret up fairly well. ManCloud is still trying to split push and take that turret. Remember, he has teleport on Katarina if Vulcan finally wants to fight.
That would be a big fight to get in. The poke comp now running down mid lane for Team Solo Mid here at 19 minutes, 20 minutes, I should say, looking for that first inhibitor turret. They don't have a big wave, and ManCloud will continue to pressure the bottom lane. Looks like TSM is forced to back away.
TSM doesn't want to dive an inhibitor turret quite yet, but they will look like they're going around to farm some other stuff out. ManCloud is creating a little bit of chaos for TSM. They're trying to go for that top turret, and Mandatory Cloud does finally seem to be recalling after Reginald has already retreated back to defend.
So they continue now for the top turret. Looks like they'll finally take it down with this one. Vulcan doesn't really have anything to dictate in this. They don't have the pressure to push down middle with their numbers. They're going to wait, watch this one go down, and just continue to farm that top lane. If we look at those farms, it's quite even in the lanes. The AD carries about 20 spread there, 189 to 165 from Wild Turtle to Zuna. Wild Turtle in the lead on that one. Everybody else pretty much even, and I think that's kind of been the story of CS throughout the playoffs. No matter what we see in lane, they have been even.
That's one thing Vulcan does really well is they farm.
Yeah.
So regardless of the situation, they're able to keep up their opponents. Obviously, TSM, being the #1 team in the LCS, does everything close to the best in the league. That's why they're #1 right now, so they're farming incredibly well as well. And I got to think about kind of how low action this game has been from Vulcan's perspective. I'm looking at Psycho Sid, 0-1. I think he's only used one ultimate in the 21 minutes because they just haven't wanted to engage in these fights. But Vulcan actually taking the initiative and getting a red steal while TSM is out of position. And when we talked about that gold changing hands, the lead is actually shrinking a little bit for TSM instead of them extending it. So Vulcan's maneuvering around the map in the last 5 minutes or so has actually worked out quite well.
The fact that, yeah, like you said, going back and forth in turrets, keeping the gold, keeping the CS when they've been somewhat down and been losing these fights. They've been avoiding fights too, which is hard to do when you're playing against TSM.
TSM really loves to force, and Reginald is just sitting on that flash. They haven't found the right situations, but the big thing is here, Rabadon's death cap and that Aegis to Legion completed on the odd one. So those are some big-time items that have been completed. Also, Infinity Edge plus Zeal, also big. Zuna getting caught out a bit. That rupture just forcing the flash.
So the flash is out. He still has his barrier, but that's going to be big for the next engagement. Like I said, it's hard to avoid a fight from Team Solo Mid. There's going to be another one they have to.
And this is exactly what we saw a little bit ago. There's Mandatory Cloud in the bottom lane. TSM didn't want to dive in last time. I wonder if they've changed their mind, or they're just going to go straight in for this turret. Zuna is a little low this time. That's the big difference.
Not the greatest pusher down in the bottom lane. ManCloud, you can see him kind of pausing and making to see that his team is doing things accordingly. Xmithy getting caught out here. That Hexdrinker going to apply itself right now. Can he dodge that last one? It does. Push off Reginald. He would have straight dove Xmithy if not for that buy.
Well, that's why he got that Hexdrinker, right? He thought he was going to be soloing off against Reginald, but that creates a pressure window for TSM to maybe get this inhibitor turret down. Vulcan's got to go.
There it is, the poke comp. You got to dive in on it. Zuna's ultimate going huge right across. They do lose Bloodwater. It's going to be big. Dyrus has a lot of HP missing as they start to run the wall to disengage, but that's exactly what you need to do.
Wild Turtle got obliterated in that fight. He has all offensive items, and Malphite got to him quickly. Reginald actually popped off his Requiem because he thought he'd be able to finish off someone, and he had that last little bit of mana to get it, but he was wrong in that situation. Vulcan holds off very well, and it looks like Xmithy is still on the attack.
Cataclysm onto a special 0 mana here for him. Here comes ManCloud from the backside. This is going to be an Oracle down as well, so a big kill here. The map pressure now to go in favor of Vulcan if they can drop a turret after this, but they're looking tunneled in on this last kill. The next flag toss, the bite coming in, the feast from Odwin isn't enough. The last blade cannot bounce enough. If they don't get the kill, Dyrus looks to turn this one around, but he overheats on the engage.
Burning them down with Leandres. Everyone thought the odd one was going to be going down, but sometimes those selfish items can help out a lot. He had the 500 health from that Spirit of the Ancient Golem that he would rarely build in the past, and I think it did end up helping him out a little bit, just based on the health that was so close to Mandatory Cloud being able to finish him down, and the very aggressive Xmithy at the end there ends up going down.
You can see just how detrimental it is to Team Solo Mid to lose Wild Turtle in the start of the fight.
It was not a fight because Wild Turtle went down right at the start, and that's something Vulcan did very well against CLG as well, was just get onto the AD carry, double it, and finish him off. So that's something TSM's definitely going to have to account for. Luckily, they have a huge amount of threats on TSM. Reginald and Dyrus are putting out huge amounts of damage in these fights, so even if they get down Wild Turtle, it'll be at what cost? Because they do have to dive through that Karthus every single time. In the last fight, where they were able to do that. Reginald was actually sitting on very low mana, so after they dove through, TSM couldn't really punish them for it. I don't know if that's going to be the case in every fight.
Exactly 4,000 gold sits between these teams. We'll have to see Vulcan pressuring a 25-minute Baron posture here. We'll have to see if this turns against them.
They're definitely looking to catch someone out of position here. That's why they have that Oracles on Bloodwater. Just the Boots of Mobility and the Ruby Sightstone. They're trying to flank around. They want to get a catch somewhere.
Oh, they see Reginald. That is vision right there. It's going to be Mandatory Cloud kind of give him hell on the top side there. The bullet time goes across, but it's not going to hit too many. Zuna was too far back. They do find a way to take down Psycho Sid. They are blinking all over on TSM's side. Reginald will go down after his passive goes off. It's going to be a shot of the Peacemaker. Almost takes him down. Smithy finds himself on the backside. TSM looks to clean this fight up. Dyrus stuck in Cataclysm will go down eventually, and it's going to be the rush in here from Team Solomon. The crescendo, the feast, the double kill for Wild Turtle, the positioning for TSM.
Vulcan tried to flank into Wild to just the entire TSM team, but TSM had superior coordination within that fight. Everything kind of went right for them, getting the 4 kills. Mandatory Cloud got pushed out of the fight very early on, and he is just hanging around at about half health. TSM has a lot of damage up. There's no feast for the Oddrun if he wants to try to secure this. And look at the damage that Wild Turtle puts down on MadCloud, essentially making the harass of this impossible. TSM might be going for this Baron.
They're taking quite a bit of damage. Requiem will drop down onto Zuna. More money for Reginald as he comes out. Like you said, that Rabadon was finished. He has home guard so he can get out of the base and get with his team. They're taking quite a bit of damage here, but they've microed it in and out to each other. They're able to grab Baron at 26 minutes. That's going to be that pause button for Vulcan.
And Vulcan had done such a great job fighting back in this game and kind of putting themselves in situations where they thought they could win a fight. But as soon as they did make that fight happen and it came out just a little bit wrong, the bullet time didn't hit just right for Zuna. He got poked down at the right moment by Wild Turtle, and it just turns into essentially an extended ace and a Baron. There's now a huge Wild Turtle chasing after them. Last Whisper, Infinity Edge, and Phantom Dancer. Reginald still sitting on that huge amount of ability power, and the Runic Bulwark aura items, even beating X-Smithy to the Aegis just entirely. It looks like it's not a close game anymore just after that one fight.
And all the vision was had by both teams, so they knew what they were getting themselves into. The gold lead spreads to about 7,000 now, which is, it was 4,000 just before that fight we saw here. 27 minutes, the Baron going in favor of Team Solomid, obviously putting money in the bank and buffs on their shoulders. And 12-7 is going to be the score here. 4-4 in turrets. Like I said, the turret objectives kind of stopped after we saw that. It's been all about lanes, pressuring, finding the next fight.
They were just trying to split push around for a long time and actually doing a really good job of keeping it even, but then eventually just ended up fighting. And now that Reginald's flash is up, I wouldn't be too surprised if they just decide to go in. One of the hardest things to dive on in the game, by the way, is Azara, but that turret's already low.
They're going to be able to get a few pokes on here. Just face taking this one out. The power cord drops it for a special. They look to go onto the inhibitor. Wild Turtle staying in the back, keeping an eye on the AD carry here as well as Reginald and ManCloud, the matchup of the day. They're going to let this one go down.
I think if they lost a fight in this situation, the game would be over,
right.
And Vulcan still sees a sliver of hope in this game if they can fight TSM without the Baron buff. That was probably a smart inhibitor to just let go down. There was no real way they were winning a straight-up 5v5 fight there if they would have tried to defend.
So really at this, like, you're always relying on MS bullet time to do a lot of damage, but with the Bloodthirster Last Whisper build to the Infinity Edge Last Whisper PD, you're kind of only relying on that ultimate now.
And the big thing about that is it's a 3,000, almost 3.4 thousand gold difference between Zuna and Wild Turtle, so that's his only option. There's no way he's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Caitlyn.
Right.
And because they actually have a fairly good follow-up composition, and the fact that Zuna is there for the assists and Mandatory Cloud would be there for jumping around and getting the resets, it is the appropriate Misfortune build in this game. He did go Bloodthirster into Last Whisper. He might even just be going for Black Cleaver next because it's not his job to go toe-to-toe with anyone on TSM. It's his job to supply damage, get people low, and just create as much utility as possible.
Hopefully they still remember he's back there when Psycho and Xmithy go face first into the fight. We saw it work for him last time. They were just in range the second to last time when they were in base. The blue one, they kind of mispositioned on it. So they're kind of 1-1 on it. If they can get this next one, I think they'll be able to push the turrets down. Because when they won that other fight, they came out of it with a lot of health.
And TSM still has the Baron buff. It's about a minute left on this one. They're going for as many outer turrets as they possibly can. I don't think Vulcan can realistically defend this one. They're just kind of here to give the turret moral support. I'd be very surprised if Vulcan actually initiated the fight on this turret. If anything, TSM would go if they see the opportunity.
This is the last hoorah on that Baron buff here for Team Solomid. It's about to wear off for them. as they continuously move up. They got about 30 seconds on that.
Yeah, this is the last wave they can go with Baron, so if they wanted to make a move now that they have Bloodwater at almost no health, the Requiem might actually get him.
They have so much pressure to just start a fight without even seeing the team they're fighting against. Bloodwater, no help here. He actually used Summoner Heal to get through that one, and the ultimate's not going to be able to pressure off of this turret.
But TSM using their Baron buff for everything. There's the flash from Reggie.
He's exhausted. Zuna can't even get his ultimate off on this when he goes to turn around for bullet time. The Cataclysm locks up the team, but it's not going to be enough. Psycho Sid and Smithy both drop. It's going to be an ace if Bloodwater comes back off the fountain.
No team is better in North America at using their windows of opportunity. There's a couple seconds on that Baron buff left when they decided to go in for that fight, and it's probably going to give them the win.
And it looks like they get the first turret, the second one in their eyes here just after 30 minutes. TSM looks again to the turrets. It gets them the win, and the first win in this series.
30 minutes into the game, they crushed Vulcan essentially in this first one. It was close for a little while when Vulcan made the comeback, but then TSM just kicked it into high gear as planned for them.
They were absolutely thinking about the past times that they've played them. They gave them the consideration and still are coming into game 2 about